The Raiders continue to tinker with their roster as they prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And how important are the next 3 games, good or bad, for the Silver and Black? That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for October 29th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show grows each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Calls, texts, really good stuff. We'll do that in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll hear from Kirk Morrison. He's a guest on my radio show each and every Monday on Raider Nation Radio 920 when I'm live there from Silver 7, usually to recap the game that just happened, but obviously this past Monday coming off the bye week just to talk about the next 10 games. And he pointed out the next 3 games, how critical they are. As a matter of fact, he called the next 3 games the Raiders' season. So we'll talk about that in segment number 2. If it goes good or bad, what's next? We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, just a little roster tinkering, and we'll get into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. So off top, little small minor roster move that the Raiders made on Tuesday when they decided to go ahead and sign wide receiver Justin Shorter back to the practice squad. If you remember, talked about it on Tuesday's show. On Monday, he was released from the active roster because they had to make room for wide receiver Tyler Lockett, who is now a member of the Silver and Black after getting his release from the Tennessee Titans. And remember, Tyler Lockett, 11-year vet in the NFL. He's a guy that's tasked with, getting there, helping the Raiders, try to win some games. His words, not mine. And also try to teach the young guys how to take the next step as NFL wide receivers. And again, as many of us have talked about with that November 4th trade deadline, he's also a guy to pay attention to. Maybe he has to slide into a role and play a bigger role as a wide receiver if, in fact, the Raiders trade Jacoby Myers. But he's on the active roster. He's been out there practicing, and now Justin Shorter, who was released from the active roster, is back on the practice squad. And we'll have an opportunity to get out there and talk to head coach Pete Carroll today. Geno Smith, the quarterback, and Ashton Jeanty, the running back. We'll catch up with them at 11:35 in the indoor facility, and the locker room will be open as well. That's until about 12:20, so I'll have an opportunity to get out there and be a part of all that. I look forward to that. I always look forward to getting inside the locker room and talking to a few of these players and just kind of getting the vibe from them based off of, how they're feeling coming off the bye week and knowing that they have more games left in the season than they've already played. I mean, think about that. We talk about it's the second half of the season, but they still have 10 games, right? And as we had our guy Proto on Tuesday's show say, he wants to see this team go 500 the second half. That's 5-5. If they do that, that'd be a really good step in the right direction for this team. But they've got to do it, and it starts this week versus Jacksonville Jaguars. Matter of fact, we'll talk about the next 3 games coming up in segment number 2 as Kirk Morrison had to say what he had to say on Monday about it being the season for the Raiders the next 3. So we'll do that in segment number 2. Before we get into that, though, Lonnie Johnson, I said on Tuesday's show that he returned to practice. The Raiders tweeted out that he returned to practice. His window, his 21-day window, is now officially open. So they have to make a decision on his roster spot. So many people hit me up. Is he going to play on Sunday? Even Vinny Bonsignore, when he had a chance to catch up with him in the Raiders locker room, hey, are you going to play? He's like, hey, I'll leave that for the other guys. Obviously, we'll talk to Pete Carroll and ask him what his thoughts are when we get the chance to catch up with him. But his 21-day window is officially open. So the Raiders have to make a decision. They can keep him on IR or they can activate him. If they do activate him, they have to make another corresponding roster move to take, to be able to comply with the 53-man roster. So Lonnie Johnson, his window is officially open. Aiden O'Connell told Vinny Bonsignore this on Monday when they got into the locker room that he thought that his 21-day window was going to be opening up soon, too, either Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's something else that we'll ask Pete Carroll about, when it comes to the injuries. Lonnie Johnson, is he a guy that could be available this week? Aiden O'Connell, do you expect his 21-day window to be activated and him, brought off of IR? And how's the rest of the guys dealing with injury? Even Colton Miller He has to miss this game for sure coming up against Jacksonville because it's 4 games, not 4 weeks when you go on IR. So this technically is the last game that he has to miss, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the last game that he does miss. So we'll definitely ask Pete Carroll how Colton Miller is coming along as well. But Lonnie Johnson, here in the interview that he did with Vinny, sounded like he was very excited to be back out there. He hasn't played all year after suffering that injury at Allegiant Stadium at the scrimmage. So he sounds like a guy that could really help, bring this team together. And he was playing a big role, a key cog, as a matter of fact, having a really good training camp and OTAs and all that before he went down to injury. So we'll see when he comes back sooner rather than later. But sounds so far so good when it comes to Lonnie Johnson. I know Pete Carroll said that he was a guy they were really looking forward to. So, again, we'll see what that means. But coming up in segment number 2, the next 3 games are the season, according to Kirk Morrison, longtime NFL linebacker, longtime Raider linebacker, current color commentator, part of the broadcast alongside Jason Horowitz. You'll hear his words, and we'll talk about it in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple of the great sponsors that we have here on the show, including Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda, they bring the same attention to how they craft every single model. And you can feel it. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every single detail. From the metallic accents to all the available Napa leather upholstery, it feels good and it looks good. Matter of fact, it looks smooth. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to great controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. I also want to tell you about Gametime. The NFL season's back. Honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans, cheering on your teams. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it could become frustrating. That's why you got to use Gametime. That's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. The app has made it super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat before you even buy. They've got zone deals. What are zone deals? Well, you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that you'll buy tickets. Right now, download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. A lot of times when I do interviews, I like to go back and listen. Sometimes you may miss something that that was said, and hey, man, I can expand on this, I could build on this, or this is a good talking point right here. And I do that with almost every interview that I do, just because I like I said, sometimes you get caught up in the moment and you don't hear everything. Well, Kirk Morrison joins my radio show every single Monday at 2:30 Pacific time, normally to talk about the game that just passed, but obviously this past Monday it was coming off the bye week, so he was just talking about the next 10 games and, what he'd like to see offensively, what the expectations were. And then he had this to say about the next 3 games that I thought was very as a matter of fact. It's like, okay, going to go ahead and put the pressure on the team and almost give them an ultimatum of, okay, this is what you need to do in the next 3 games. We'll know a whole lot about you. I thought this was great what Kirk Morrison had to say. Check it out.
I tell you, this next 3 games, Q, are our season.
Okay.
Just plain and simple. It's our season. Next 3 games. That's it. If you want to know what the Raiders season is going to be in 2025, it is these next 3 games. Jacksonville, Denver, and Dallas. 3 games that, man, wow. Tough? Yes. Winnable? Yes. But if you don't win these games, if you drop all 3, if you drop 2 of the 3, obviously it's a long way up. But I feel like, man, I have a confidence that this team can be competitive, that they can take these teams to the wire, and I'm fully confident that they can really win these games. I really, truly believe that. I'm not afraid of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of Denver. I've seen what Denver can do. I mean, Denver come on, man, let's just be real. What happened a couple weeks ago against New York? Like, the Giants gave that game away.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm at a division game against Denver on a Thursday. Yes, that's a good matchup for us. And then the Cowboys coming in on a Monday night, a long rest for us as well. These next 3 games are the Raiders' season, Q. And that's what I'm looking forward to see. How does these guys respond? How does my leaders stand up? And at the end of the day, if we got a healthy Brock Bowers, let's feed him. Let's feed Ashton Genty. Let's do what we think and what we feel works the best. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out.
Strong, powerful statement right there from Kirk Morrison. Again, longtime NFL linebacker, Raider linebacker, part of the broadcast team right now. Think he does a great job. His breakdowns are always great. The way that he, illustrates stuff is fantastic. So definitely appreciate the opportunity to have him on my show each and every Monday. But, man, that really stood out to me. All right, the next 3 games are the season. And I talked about this on my radio show on Tuesday as well. Just, again, going back and listening to what he had to say. So Jags this Sunday, then the Broncos on a short week on Thursday, and then the Cowboys Monday Night Football. So if the Raiders don't, as my guy P.E. in Carolina would say, show and prove in the next 3 games, then it's basically a wrap. And I remember even talking to Lincoln on Tuesday, and he was like, I kind of feel like it's a wrap already. And I know a lot of Raider Nation feels like it's a wrap already. But literally, they're 2-5. If the next, 3 games, they can find a way to win 2 out of the 3, you give yourself some hope. If you win 1 out of the 3, you're probably not feeling too good about yourself. But if you go over, then you really are like it's church, right? Game, set, match. That's when 100% focus goes to the draft. That's when 100% focus goes to draft position. That's when 100% focus goes to the young players that the on the team just to see what they have. That's when you start really thinking about maybe, Geno Smith is not the quarterback that you want to see finish off the season. Then maybe you start talking about Kenny Pickett or Aiden O'Connell if he has already made it back, right? Obviously, he's got to come back from injury, but that's when you start thinking about one of those 2 guys, right? Then you really might start limiting Ashton Genty and the carries that he has because you don't want to put a lot of wear on and tear on his tires for no reason, right? Even though that's not what he wants. He wants to play. He wants to play, and he wants to play a lot. But you might be very careful bringing guys back like Colton Miller, who you don't want them to get banged up. You don't want to rush them back. Like there's a lot of decisions, business decisions, on and off the field that you might make if you go over. So I think that that's really important. I think the Raiders need to do everything they can to win 2 out of 3. I mentioned having E-Rob on the show on Friday in studio, and he was great, and I played some of that on Monday's show as well. But he feels very confident, especially with these guys coming back healthy, like a Brock Bowers, like a Jacoby Myers, and obviously it's TBD on Jacoby because we won't know if he's going to be with the team much longer. He might play this Sunday, and that might be his last game. Or he might get moved before that. Who knows? Right? I mean, trades happen just like that in the NFL, so you never know. Right? But you're hoping that you get as many guys back healthy as possible to get them out there and see what they can do at this stage of the game. But I thought that was a very interesting nugget from Kirk talking about, the next 3 games is the Raiders season. And they've got to find a way, even especially that Broncos game on a short week. And I know you can only take it 1 game at a time, and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. But, man, the Broncos on a short week is going to be hard. just to put it as plain as possible, super hard, right? I mean, that's going to be a tough one, man. Going to Denver on the road on a short week is not going to be anything easy. And then the Cowboys Monday Night Football, at least the Raiders will be coming off of somewhat of a mini bye and have an opportunity, and they'll be at the house. So 2 of the next 3 games are at the crib, at Allegiant Stadium, and then you got the Broncos on a short week. Now, a lot of people, as I was talking about this on my radio show on Tuesday, said, well, if they go over, then Pete's got to be out. That means this season is a wash. It's a rehab. It's a rebuild, I should say. Excuse me. It's a terrible season. He needs to be out. And I keep saying that I don't think that this team, with all the turnover it's had, can afford to have more turnover, right? I know that there's decisions that could be made on the OC, Chip Kelly. There could be decisions that could be made on the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham. I just don't think changing the head coach again is going to make a lot of sense, even though we know he's not going to be there for a long time. But you've got to give him a chance to try to build this team up, get it where it needs to be, and then when it is time for him to move on, whoever takes over, and they may already have that plan in place, we don't know, whoever takes over is ready to pick up the ball and run with it, right? But the Raiders cannot afford to keep just changing coach. So I mentioned Lincoln Kennedy. He joins my radio show each and every Tuesday and Thursday. He was on Tuesday, and I asked him about it, and I said straight up, like, hey, man, I don't think the Raiders can afford to make another coaching change. Here's what Lincoln had to say.
You can't keep firing people that you have under contract. There's going to be buyouts. You're losing money. And every coach that you bring in is going to want to bring in his own system. And you can't fault them, especially if they're going to be, put their name next to the head coaching thing. You've really got to stay hard and just take your lumps and hope that that's why I'm saying I want to see growth.
Right.
I want to see something making a decision going in the right direction. If you end up with the same record, you're going to have plenty of people that are cowering for, Pete Carroll to be let go, and then we're right back where we started from. We're not building anything.
Right, and the other thing that I said about that, Lincoln, is you're not going to ever attract a coach that's worth the salt because they're going to say, well, if it doesn't work right away, I'm going to get fired anyway.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that seems to be what people are thinking or people are holding on to when they talk about the possibility of change.
Right, exactly. And so that's one of my big hang-ups, and I went on a big kind of rant about it, that just can't keep happening. It just looks like stability is not there. And coaches want stability. As much as players want stability, so do coaches.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And then, look, and I understand it. And that's one of the reasons why I never wanted to go into coaching, because I never wanted to live with my bags packed.
Right.
Exactly. The truth is if you don't want to go and live with your bags packed, you don't want to be a head coach or don't want to be a coach, period, because the coaches get fired and hired all of a sudden. I mean, you look at the history since Del Rio, and look where we are now.
Right.
How many coaches have come through? How many players have come through? We don't have any consistency. You got to build somewhere.
I just don't think it's realistic. And again, when you have as much turnover as this team has had, and that's the reason why this team doesn't have depth, because look, every new coach that comes in wants his guys. Every new offensive coordinator that comes in wants guys that match his scheme or guys that they feel like could excel in their scheme. So you're consistently changing things over. We have a listener that calls into the radio show named Raider66. He's like a historian. He's fantastic. He said, do you know, Q, in the time that since the Pittsburgh Steelers have been hiring their coach, they've had 3, right? Obviously, Mike Tomlin's been around for a very long time. Since the time that the Steelers had their first coach, the Raiders have had, 19 coaches in 38 years? And he said, you do the math. It's basically a new coach every other year. That will never work. You cannot have that kind of continuity. And I know you're going to say, well, if it doesn't work, then why are you going to hold on to him? I understand, but you're going to have to learn to let this guy build this thing up. You're going to have to give him a chance to at least build it up. And I know it's hard to say that when patience has been something the Raider Nation has had and shown for a very long time. It's not Pete Carroll's fault. It's not John Spytek's fault that this team has had a revolving door at the head coach position, GM position, for so many years. It's just not. But unfortunately, Raider Nation is the one that's got to deal with it. I just don't think it's good practice. I think it's a bad situation if they decide, all right, well, hey, Pete Carroll's one and done. If he doesn't get this thing turned down, he's one and done. Because the other problem with this, and as I mentioned, is stability. You heard me mention it to Lincoln. What coach that's really good is going to want to go to the Raiders and think, hey, man, I might not win right away. I might get fired immediately. You know what I mean? Like, I might be one and done as well. People want stability. People don't want to feel like that they're going to be gone immediately. They want to feel like that they're going to have at least a few years to prove who they are. Just like the Lions stuck by Dan Campbell when he was struggling when he first got the job there in Detroit. The Raiders are going to have to stick by their guy. And I believe that the way that they've made this new structure with the new ownership, with Tom Brady and everyone else that's come into the mix, I believe that they made this hire knowing that, hey, we've got to stick with this guy for a few years. That's why they gave him a 3-year deal with the 4th-year team option. Again, now that doesn't mean that Chip Kelly's not going anywhere. That doesn't mean Patrick Graham's not going anywhere. But for my money, it just doesn't make any sense to me to see Pete Carroll go after 1 year if things don't go the way that we all expected it and all wanted it to go. But that's just me. What says you? 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you as we close out the show. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Here we go, Raider Nation. It's segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Gonzo Raider in the 505. He's calling to talk about listening to the show and what other listeners feel like the Raiders need to do, and shares his own thoughts. Here he is, Gonzo Raider in the 505.
What's up, Q? Gonzo Raider here from the 505. You know, listening to your show every day gives me something to do going to work at 4 in the morning. But listen to people's comments about what we may or may not need. You know, obviously your quarterback, obviously offensive line, obviously some help on the D. But what we need again is some dogs. You know, people always were afraid to play the Raiders. I've been a Raider fan for almost 40 years now. And from back then, people were afraid of the Raiders. Whether we won or lost, they didn't want to play the Raiders because they knew what they were in for. That Autumn Wind song at the end, he'll knock you around and upside down and laugh when he has conquered and won. We need to go back to that mentality. You know, AP might have not have worked out, but if you listen to how he would talk and amp up the team and amp up everybody, I'm not saying we need somebody just to talk, but we need the action now. We need those dogs again. We need those Raiders again. So whether we win or lose, they're afraid to play the Raiders. They're afraid to walk into Allegiant. We need to black that stadium out, whether we win or lose. As always, Q, thank you. Thank Ami, if I got his name right. You know, I hope I did. And you know what? Thank you to Raider Nation. Raider Nation strong. Let's go, baby.
Gonzo, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, that old school Raider toughness is definitely needed. I'll say this, though. The Raiders were able to be tough back in the day because they were also really good. And what I mean is they were so skilled and had such playmakers, right? Even the tough guys, you know, GA, George Atkinson, you know, rest in peace. Guys like that, they would go through and put a big hit on you, but they would also come up with the ball. They get interceptions. They cause fumbles, you know, stuff like that. Like, when's the last time the Raiders had that ball hawk corner or ball hawk safety? It's been so many years, right? I mean, one could say Reggie Nelson was probably the last one that they had was really good. Between Reggie Nelson and C. Wood were the last two guys that consistently went and got the ball. And that's a shame that it's been that long. They just don't have guys like that. Max Crosby, he came up with an interception this year. Batted ball, interception, had a heck of a game, right? I mean, he's a game changer. But where's your other game changer, especially defensively, right? That toughness, yeah, you're able to play tough, but when you're able to make plays as well, that's different, right? And obviously we know the game has changed, right? With George Atkinson and all the greats back in the day were doing, obviously you'd be thrown in jail these days if they played that way. They can't do that. But still, you get my point. It's got to be the toughness, but the skill set and the production, the playmaking ability has got to be there as well. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Mech, I believe, M-E-K. Hey, Q and Ari, despite Carroll's resume, why did Davis Brady Spytek ignore the fact that Seattle demoted him to an advisor role following the 2023 season? Everything about the Carroll hire appears to be selected at face value. Folks only acknowledge the back-to-back Super Bowl runs well over a decade ago and can't think of anything relevant he's done in recent memory. His last 3 seasons in Seattle, 2021, 7-10, no playoffs. 2022, 9-8, lost in the wild card round. 2023, 9-8, no playoffs. And mind you, John Schneider, Seattle's GM, was never relieved of his duties. They kept him, and now they're honestly not looking bad at all. I think we made yet another mistake with our head coach, specifically since Gruden stepped down. I get that there weren't many options outside of Vrabel with the experience, but who knows anymore. Thanks, Q and Ari. That's from our guy, Mech. Now, we all questioned, Pete Carroll. I questioned it when the name was first floated by me. I was like, I don't know, man, because of what happened in Seattle. But from my research and from what, the people I talked to there in Seattle, it had ran its course. It just ran its course, as simple as that. I think, especially after sitting back and kind of evaluating everything and, talking to people and realizing what this team needed, I think they needed a guy that can build this team up, right? Even though Ben Johnson was the guy everybody wanted, he ended up in Chicago. There was no proof that he was going to be a really good coach, right? And the Raiders had already gone their route of coaches that had no experience as head coaches, and it hadn't worked out for him. So I think, he might have been the best guy for the job outside of Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel obviously went back to his old team, the New England Patriots, team he played for, won Super Bowls with. And I don't think that anyone would want Josh McDaniels to come along as the OC with Mike Vrabel, even though he is that guy now in New England. So, I think that for what the Raiders needed, Pete Carroll's the best guy for the job. Now he's just got to win. But remember, we're judging him off of 7 games. That's it. Only 7 games. So even me being optimistic about Pete Carroll, I never thought this was a playoff team. I thought this was a team that was going to win 8 games at best. And that kind of goes to your last 3 years. 2021, 7 wins. 2022, 9 wins. 2023, 9 wins. I'll take that. I'll take that right now because that's a good first year with Pete Carroll. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to go to the playoffs and win the Super Bowl this year, but that would be 7 wins would be good. If they can go 5 and 5 in these next 10 games, I would take that and think that that's a real positive step. Remember, this team won 4 games last year. That's it. Not very good. So sometimes you got to walk before you can run. Sometimes you got to run before you can, jump out the gym. I don't know. That was a bad one. But you know what I mean. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Johnny Raider, he's up next. He's calling to talk about the signing of Tyler Lockett. Has his concerns with it, and he shares why. Here he is, Johnny Raider.
Hey, Q. Johnny Raider here. Just listening to Tuesday's episode. I wanted to speak, well, first of all, prayers and thoughts for the Atkinson and Davis family. It's really a big loss for the Raider Nation. But I wanted to speak on the signing of Lockett, as well as Jacoby Myers. As far as Lockett, I'm not a huge fan of the signing. I know we all kind of mutually agree as Raider Nation, maybe less than a few don't, but we all kind of agree that it's time to start playing the youngsters, the rookies, the year 2 players, and see what we have in them for the future. Because we all kind of know we're not making the playoffs, and Tyler Lockett's not going to make a huge difference. He may bring some valuable knowledge to the locker room and these young guys, but nothing more valuable than playtime, like I've heard you say multiple times before. They need that burn on the field, so I'm just wary of this signing. I'm worried that it's going to take away from Besh and Thornton and their opportunities to learn and grow. Because if they have bumps in the road at this point, what does it really matter? Anyway, hopefully they start playing some of these young guys. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Jacoby Myers. We all love him. He's always been a consummate professional. This year you can tell he's kind of tanking it. He's holding back a little bit. Maybe he doesn't want to get injured. But we need to trade him because he's just going to leave this year, and then we're going to have to wait 2 years, and what are we going to get, a 4th-round compensatory pick, which is basically a 5th-round pick? He's worth more than that. I don't want to see the Raiders lose out on value and just let players walk like they have done in the past. As far as Jacoby, my examples of him kind of tanking it are his blocking. Past few years, he's been an outstanding blocking receiver, puts a lot of effort into it, maybe one of the best in the league at a receiver blocking. This year, he's just not putting that effort in. You can see he's just going through the motions when it comes to blocking. So anyway, Q, I know I'm running out of time. Hope to hear your response to that. And as always, go Raiders.
Johnny, thanks again for the call. Tyler Lockett, I mean, he's a guy that at the end of the day, at least Gino's comfortable with him, right? I mean, he talked to Vinny Bonsignore and said, hey, we got a really good relationship. We've got really good chemistry. So he's a guy that maybe Gino will help settle him down because that's really the biggest thing. When you look at the Raiders in their quarterback position, Gino's just not settled. He's playing, kind of flustered. He's playing at a level where he's guarded. He's not comfortable in his own skin. You could just tell that he's a little shell shocked right now. So maybe Tyler Lockett helps calm him down a little bit, ease his nerves a little bit because he is very familiar with them. But he can help teach the young guys. But again, at the end of the day, that's also just another side dish. That's actually what Jacoby's doing right now. The big question is Jacoby going to be around for the long haul to continue to do that? The writing on the wall says no, but we'll see what happens moving forward. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, text from 307 Raiders says, Q, few weeks ago, I heard you talking about how it was too early for evaluation season. But looking at things from today's perspective, shouldn't Pete Carroll have just said that this whole season was evaluation season from day one? I get the fans want to have the optimism, but when you look at all year one contracts, new players, it seems like this was always an evaluation season with no real expectations of winning this year. Would this somehow explain why they aren't using Genty like they logically should? Maybe to limit any damage he might take this year. Or why they would bring in Lockett to help mentor the young wide receiver but not trade Jacoby yet. Or maybe Chip Kelly is calling plays to evaluate specific players rather than calling plays to get his first downs. It just seems like this whole season is a year-long training camp. I'm looking for any reason to make some sense out of what's going on with this team. 307 Ghost Town Raider with the text right there. Thanks so much for the text. I guess evaluation season is all year long. I think Pete Carroll, though, is actually really surprised that this team hasn't taken off faster than what they have. I think that he expected to really be in the thick of things right now with 4 or 5 wins, and obviously they're not there. He said it multiple times at press conferences that he's surprised by where they are as a team. And I think that when they looked at it, I think when him and John Spytek sat down, whatever John Spytek felt about the team, Pete Carroll, to me, in my opinion, it looked like he felt like this team was further along than they really are. And so I think he's getting a taste of reality right now when it comes to this team. Chip Kelly, I think he's trying to figure it out. And I don't know if him and Pete Carroll are actually on the same page of what the identity of this Raiders team is supposed to be, because right now it feels like they don't genuinely have a strong, identity at this stage of the game. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. Got a text from Big Dave in South Dakota we'll get to on tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then on Friday. Of course, we'll have the crossover edition. Ant Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jags, will be with him, talking all things Jaguars and Raiders, talking about storylines, matchups, and keys to victory. We'll do that as well. We get to meet with Pete Carroll and different players today, so we look forward to that. Got plenty to bring you the rest of the week as we close things out. Looking forward to week 9 at Allegiant Stadium. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.